The Australian outback is a vast ochre-stained expanse where the horizon stretches until the sky seems to bow in reverence to the ancient dust. It is a territory that defies maps, a rugged tapestry of red earth and silver ghost gums. It is a land of paradox, where blistering heat gives way to a cold, starlit silence heavy with the weight of eons. Here, time does not move in a straight line. It swirls in invisible eddies, anchoring the present to a past so distant that modern minds struggle to conceptualize its beginning. To step into this wilderness is to leave the known world and enter a realm where every rock and sand dune carries a story whispered through 65,000 years of continuous human history. For the indigenous people, this is the dreaming, or Al-Keringa. To outsiders, it is often dismissed as a collection of myths, but to those belonging to the land, it is far more profound. This ancient lineage is not just a remnant of the past. It is a living, breathing testament to human resilience. It is a parallel reality existing alongside our own, a blueprint of creation still being written. The dreaming is not a once-upon-a-time story. It is an eternal now. This is the central friction, the struggle between Western scientific dogma, which seeks to categorize the world into neat boxes, and a culture that views the universe as a singular, vibrating heartbeat. Science demands empirical proof, yet it finds itself humbled by a tradition that has survived ice ages and the slow drift of continents. We are uncovering the first great mystery, the accuracy of oral maps. Long before the compass, the First Nations people possessed geographic knowledge that predates modern cartography. They speak of coastlines no longer existing and islands swallowed by the sea 10,000 years ago. The silence here is not empty. It is a library of the universe, waiting for those with the ears to hear. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. My journey led me into the parched center of the continent, away from paved roads and into the heat haze of the desert heart. I was searching for the elder, a guardian of sacred knowledge. He is said to hold the key to an impossible truth, a bridge between the physical world and the intangible whispers of the ancestors. As dust coated the stunted trees, I thought about the great drought legends. These are not merely stories, they are precise oral records of the end of the last ice age. Each rock formation is a witness to the shifting sands of time, holding secrets that have been protected for millennia. Aboriginal legends describe the drying of inland lakes and the rise of sea levels with a geological precision that matches modern sonar mapping. They tell of a time when giant megafauna roamed and the Great Barrier Reef was dry land. If these are myths, how do they contain such specific data from 18,000 years ago? How did a culture without a written language preserve the memory of a changing climate across hundreds of generations? We are forced to ask if myth is simply a mask for a science we do not yet understand. The further I traveled, the more the modern world retreated. My instruments betrayed me. Magnetic needles spun aimlessly, and my GPS flickered with ghost signals before plunging into darkness. The elder warned me that there are places where the land itself refuses to be measured. He spoke of a site so sacred and strange that its coordinates exist only in the memory of the song. As the sun dipped, painting the sky in bruises of purple, I felt a prickle of unease. I was approaching a boundary science had never crossed, a place where the air vibrated with an ancient frequency. Somewhere ahead, hidden by the shadows, lay a truth that could rewrite everything we know about our species. The elder watched the useless glow of my satellite phone with a look of patient amusement. He didn't need to say that the satellites were blind to what truly mattered in this ancient place. As the cooling desert air began to hum with the first sighs of the night wind, he introduced the concept of the songlines, or the yeri. These are not merely paths through the dirt. They are invisible, sacred melodic threads that crisscross the entire continent like a complex nervous system. To the Western eye, the outback is a featureless, terrifying void, a repeating pattern of red dust where every horizon looks identical. But to those who carry the ancient melodies, the desert is an intricate musical score. These paths are the literal tracks of the creator beings who sang the world into existence, leaving a trail of music that acts as a permanent map. The scientific anomaly lies in the impossible precision of this navigation. Aboriginal travelers can journey thousands of miles across terrain they have never visited, crossing different territories, yet finding a hidden water soak with pinpoint accuracy. They do this by singing the song associated with that specific path. This phenomenon defies traditional Western understanding of human memory and spatial awareness. Some physicists suggest the songlines might be a form of quantum entanglement or a manifestation of morphic resonance. They speculate that the land and the human mind are entangled parts of a singular vibrating field. In this view, the songlines are the human interface with the Earth's neurological network, storing data in the very atoms of the rocks. A haunting 19th-century anecdote tells of a European explorer lost in the Gibson Desert. Parched and delirious, he was waiting for death when a local Aboriginal man appeared from the heat haze. The man had never ventured this far north, yet he walked with absolute, unwavering confidence. When asked how he found a stranger in such a vast, empty wilderness, he explained he was simply following a new song resonating in his feet. He wasn't looking for the traveler, he was following the rhythm of the land, and the man was merely a physical object resting upon that frequency. It suggests the song exists as an objective reality, a constant broadcast from the earth itself that requires a specific attunement to hear. This acoustic map is a monumental masterpiece of information storage. Specific notes correspond to physical landmarks with startling fidelity. A staccato beat might warn of jagged limestone, while a melodic drone signifies a subterranean river hidden beneath the sand. Every tiny rise in the melody mirrors the topography of the hard earth. When the elder hummed a low, vibrating note, he pointed toward a distant, invisible ridge. The pitch matched the height of the stone. This is a multi-dimensional database where geography and history are compressed into sound, allowing the singer to see with their ears what the eyes cannot yet behold. The conflict with modern science is profound and persistent. Skeptics often attempt to debunk songlines as simple mnemonics, complex tunes used primarily to help remember a shopping list of landmarks. But this reductionist view fails entirely to explain the vibrational accuracy, allowing navigation across the continent in total darkness. The persistent tension lies in the fundamental definition of knowing. Science wants to objectively observe the map. The Aboriginal people want to be the map. They understand that man is not merely walking on the land, but is a functioning, vital part of its ancient frequency. The elder explained that if the song stops, the land withers. The connection is both biological and spiritual. This frequency is the true heartbeat of the continent. Recently, marine geologists discovered underwater songlines along the northern coast. Local oral traditions described paths and sacred sites that lay miles out at sea, hidden by deep water. When researchers mapped these songs against high-resolution sonar, they were stunned. The songs accurately described the coastline exactly as it existed 18,000 years ago, before the Great Melt raised the oceans. The music maps ancient river valleys that haven't seen the sun in 20 millennia, proving the song is a high-fidelity record of a lost world, etched into the memory of a people who have never forgotten the Earth's original face. The journey led further into the rugged, sun-scorched terrain of the Kimberley, a place where the landscape feels forged in the fires of creation. Here, The sandstone walls are not merely geological features, they are living galleries for something that challenges the very linear nature of time. We stood before the Wandjina, the cloud spirits. These figures, painted in vivid ochres and chalky whites, are the supreme creators of the Mwandjum people. Their appearance is striking and profoundly unsettling to the uninitiated eye. These figures possess enormous, soul-piercing black eyes that seem to track every movement across the cave floor, yet they have no mouths. The elder explained with a respectful gravity that they are mouthless because their power is so immense that if they were to speak, they would bring about a final, eternal flood. Surrounding their heads are elaborate, radiant white halos, often misinterpreted as space helmets by outsiders. To the locals, however, these are the clouds and the lightning they command, the manifestation of atmospheric power. Western science faces a dilemma when confronted with these images. Carbon dating of the underlying pigments suggests some of these artworks are thousands of years old, predating most major global civilizations. Yet, remarkably, many look as though the paint has barely dried. This is not due to any secret chemical preservation, but rather the sacred ritual of refreshing. For the Mwandjum, the act of repainting is a biological and spiritual necessity. They believe that to maintain the balance of the natural world, they must physically renew the Wandjina figures. It is a duty passed through countless generations to keep the spirits alive within the rock. If the paintings are allowed to fade, the connection to the spirit world weakens, and the land itself begins to wither. This practice bridges the gap between the ancient past and the immediate present. It is a record that continues to breathe. This visual strangeness has fueled decades of ancient astronaut theories. Skeptics look at the bulbous heads, the lack of facial features, and the halos, and see visitors from another galaxy. They claim these are literal depictions of extraterrestrials who descended to guide human evolution. However, for the Mwandjum, this is a modern delusion born of a lack of connection to the earth. To them, the halo is not a helmet. It is the aura of the heavy monsoon clouds. The lack of a mouth is not a biological trait of an alien race, but a symbol of the disciplined, silent power of nature. The conflict remains. Science sees a mystery, while the indigenous see reality. The most controversial aspect of the Wandjina is their purported mastery over the weather. The elder spoke of these paintings not as art, but as weather makers. He insisted the Wandjina control the monsoon rains that provide life-sustaining water to this environment. To the modern scientific mind, the idea that a painting could influence atmospheric pressure is absurd. Yet I recalled a story from a colleague, a rigid meteorologist. He came to disprove the ritual's link to weather. During an intense drought, he watched as the custodians completed a ritualistic repainting of a Wandjina figure. The sky was a cruel, cloudless blue. Within an hour, a localized violent storm erupted directly over the site. It rained nowhere else for miles. The skeptic sat drenched as lightning mirrored the patterns on the wall. He had no data to explain the sudden shift, but his eyes were wide with a new realization. As I touched the cool surface of the rock, I realized the Wandjina are an interface between humanity and the cosmos. But the mystery extends far beyond the Kimberley. Recent archaeological surveys in the Sahara and the Andes have uncovered humanoid figures with the same haunting, mouthless faces and radiant halos. These similarities, found across oceans in disconnected cultures, suggest a global phenomenon predating known history. The Wandjina may not be an isolated anomaly, but a single chapter in a much larger global story of a presence that has watched over humanity since the first sunrise. The dust of the Kimberley settled behind us as we travelled eastward, crossing into the desolate, flat expanses of the Queensland outback. Here the landscape sheds its rugged verticality, stretching into a horizon so straight it feels like the edge of the world. In this lonely stretch of the Channel Country, near the ghost town of Boulia, the darkness is absolute, yet it is never truly empty. This is the realm of the Min Min lights, a phenomenon that has haunted travellers and locals for over a century. Named after the ruins of the Min Min Hotel, where they were first recorded by settlers, these glowing sentient orbs are far more than mere optical illusions. To the scientific mind, the lights are a puzzle to be solved with thermometers and light meters. Researchers have proposed various theories, suggesting they are the result of Fata Morgana, a complex form of superior mirage where light from distant cars or fires is refracted over the horizon by temperature inversions. Others point toward bioluminescent gases rising from the parched earth or the piezoelectric effect of tectonic strain in the underlying crust. Yet, none of these explanations account for the behavior of the lights themselves. The elder looked out over the darkened plains, his eyes reflecting the deep void of the sky. He did not speak of refraction or gas. To the Aboriginal people, these are the lights of the dead, the eyes of ancestors keeping watch, or more dangerously, predatory spirits seeking to lead the unwary into the heart of the desert. They are known as the Follow Me lights, and their curiosity is as legendary as it is terrifying. A dramatic history of encounters paints a picture of something that defies every known law of physics. Imagine a lone driver navigating the narrow, corrugated tracks of the Boulia-Birdsville Road. It begins as a faint, flickering star on the horizon, seemingly miles away. Within seconds, it is pacing the vehicle, keeping a perfect distance from the passenger side window. When the driver accelerates to 80 miles per hour, the light remains effortless, matching the speed without a flicker of exertion. When the driver kills the engine and douses the headlights, the orb does not vanish. Instead, it drifts closer, floating mere inches from the glass, a cold, pulsating sphere of white or violet luminescence. Then, in a terrifying display of impossible geometry, the light splits into two, dancing around each other in a rhythmic spiral before merging back into a single, blinding point of light that shoots vertically into the atmosphere at a velocity no aircraft could survive. Scientific expeditions have arrived in the region armed with the latest high-frequency sensors and infrared cameras, hoping to capture the Min Min on film. Yet, the results are almost always the same: total equipment failure. Just as the lights appear, batteries that were fully charged moments ago are drained to zero. Sensors output nothing but static, and digital recordings are wiped clean or corrupted beyond recognition. It is as if the phenomenon possesses an awareness of being observed, a technological shyness that borders on active sabotage. This consistent failure of Western instrumentation deepens the emotional weight of the mystery. For the local communities, the lights are not a curiosity to be measured. They are a presence to be respected and feared. There is a palpable tension in the air when the lights are mentioned, a silence that speaks of an understanding science cannot reach. Unlike natural atmospheric events, the Min Min lights appear to exhibit a distinct sense of intelligence and curiosity. They do not drift randomly with the wind. They hunt, they observe, and they interact with the consciousness of those they follow. The elder whispered that the lights are a bridge, a way for the land to look back at us. This predatory nature is not necessarily one of malice, but of an overwhelming, ancient hunger for connection. One witness, a man who had been pursued for miles until his car eventually stalled in the deep sand, shared a revelation that chilled me to the bone. He claimed that as the light hovered before him, the silence of the desert was replaced by a flood of sensory input. The light did not speak in words, nor did it make a sound. Instead, it projected memories directly into his mind. Forgotten scenes from his childhood, the scent of rain on hot dust from decades ago, and the faces of relatives long since past. The light was not just an orb of energy, it was a mirror, a living archive of his own soul, reading him as easily as he was watching it. As it finally faded into the pre-dawn mist, it left him with the unshakable realization that in the outback, the darkness is not just a lack of light, but a presence that remembers everything we have ever been. Yet, even as we contemplate these spirits of light, a different kind of phantom is emerging from within the very cells of the people themselves. The transition from the ethereal glow of the min-min lights to the cold, sterile light of a modern laboratory felt like a leap across dimensions, yet both paths led to the same startling conclusion. The history we think we know is merely a thin veil over a much older, deeper reality. While the spiritual mysteries of the outback haunt the horizon, a different kind of phantom is emerging from within the very cells of the people who have walked this land since the dawn of time. This is the genetic mystery of the ghost DNA, a discovery that has left the international scientific community in a state of profound disorientation. When the dedicated DNA researcher, a woman who had spent her professional life tracing the intricate migrations of early humans through sun-bleached bone fragments and saliva samples, first mapped the Aboriginal genome, she expected to find the familiar markers of a standard, predictable evolutionary branch. Instead, she encountered sequences that simply should not exist according to our current models of anthropology. This ghost DNA belongs to a hominid group that has never appeared in the global fossil record, a mysterious ancestor that suggests a branch of the human family tree that lived, thrived, and perhaps disappeared entirely within the isolation of the Australian continent. It is a biological signature from a lost world, a piece of the puzzle that does not fit the neat, established categories of Neanderthal or Denisovan ancestry. This anomaly strikes at the heart of the out-of-Africa theory, the prevailing scientific narrative that describes a single, linear migration of modern humans from a central point. The data suggests something far more complex, a presence that is significantly older, or a migration so ancient that it predates our current understanding of early human capability. For the elder, standing on the red earth that has colored his skin for a lifetime, this scientific and historical confusion is not a surprise. He speaks of his people as the eternal people, a concept that fundamentally dismisses the idea of a distant origin. To him, the Aboriginal people did not arrive on these shores from elsewhere. They were woven into the very fabric of the continent from the first moment of the dreaming. They did not cross vast oceans to find a home. The home was literally created around them by the spirits of the earth. This clash between the sterile laboratory results and the stone stories creates a friction that is currently rewriting the textbooks of human history. Beyond the mystery of ancestry lies the incredible physiological endurance of the Aboriginal people, a trait that seems almost supernatural to the uninitiated observer. In the heart of the desert, where daytime temperatures soar to 50 degrees Celsius and then plummet to freezing levels after sunset, their bodies exhibit a resilience that defies standard medical expectations. They possess a unique, documented ability to regulate their metabolism and skin temperature in ways that allow them to sleep in the open air during frost-laden nights without the aid of modern shelter or thick clothing. It is as if their biology has entered into a deep cellular contract with the land itself, an evolutionary adaptation that suggests tens of thousands of years of uninterrupted harmony with one of the most hostile environments on Earth. This is not merely a survival tactic. It is a profound testament to the ancient bond between man and soil. This connection is what the DNA researcher refers to as memory in the blood. Science is finally beginning to acknowledge what the elders have always known, that the landscape is encoded into the genetic structure. Through the emerging study of epigenetics, we are seeing how the trauma of ancient and environmental shifts and the geography of the songlines are passed down through generations as biological markers. The most chilling discovery came when the researcher analyzed a specific sequence in a group of elders. This pattern was not random. When plotted against a three-dimensional model of the night sky, it revealed a startling alignment. The DNA pattern perfectly matched the positions of the Seven Sisters star cluster, a central figure in a 40,000-year-old Dreamtime legend. The researcher's eyes mirrored my own shock, realizing that we were not just looking at a genome, but at a living and breathing library that predated the written word by millennia, where the stars themselves were written into the blood of those who have watched them for ages. This was a staggering revelation. The DNA researcher stood beside me under the sprawling, crystalline canopy of the Milky Way, the weight of her findings hanging heavy in the warm, dry night air. We were no longer searching for anomalies. We were witnessing a grand synthesis, the invisible paths of the songlines mapping the earth through melody, the mouthless faces of the Wandjina guarding the Kimberley, and the impossible genetic sequences within the blood were not disparate mysteries. They were chapters of a single coherent story written across this ancient continent for 65 millennia. This was the final confrontation between the scientific method and the dreaming reality, ending not in defeat, but in a profound, silent understanding. Science, which had long served as the antagonist in this journey, was finally undergoing a quiet surrender. It was a redemptive moment for researchers who had spent years trying to categorize the impossible. It wasn't that the scientific method had failed. It was that our human-made tools had finally become sensitive enough to perceive the frequencies that the elders had tuned into since the dawn of time. The rigid walls of dogma were crumbling, replaced by a realization that the dreaming is not a collection of primitive fables, but a sophisticated, multi-layered reality where time is not a line but a circle. We were not disproving the mysteries. We were finally developing the eyes to see them. This realization reached its peak as we stood at the sacred site of Ngaut Ngaut, an ancient solar observatory that hushed the very soul. Here, carved meticulously into the limestone cliffs, was a record of celestial movements that predates the construction of Stonehenge by thousands of years. It stood as a physical manifestation of an intellectual and spiritual mastery that Western history had long denied to the Aboriginal people. This wasn't merely a place to track the passing of seasons. It was a cosmic manuscript where the dance of the sun and the moon was recorded with precision. It proved that while Europe was still in its infancy, the custodians of this land were already charting the heavens and grounding that knowledge into the stone itself. The global message emerging from these red sands is one of deep, urgent survival. It teaches us about the resilience of the human spirit and our lost connection to the earth. These mysteries remind us that man is not an inhabitant of the land, but a literal part of its frequency. If we lose this connection, we lose the essence of what it means to be human. The memory in the blood is not just an Aboriginal trait. It is a dormant potential within all of us, a call to remember the rhythms of the natural world that we have traded for the hum of technology and the rush of the modern age. As I prepared to leave the desert heart, I sat one last time with the elder. The silence of the outback was no longer an empty void. It was the heavy silence of a library containing the secrets of the universe. Every shifting dune and weathered rock felt like a page being turned. The elder looked up at the stars, his face reflecting the same light that had guided his ancestors through the ice ages and across rising seas. He explained that we are not separate entities wandering a lonely planet. Instead, he told me that we are all walking dreams, transient expressions of a singular, eternal consciousness that the land itself sustains and remembers long after we are gone. The mystery remains, and perhaps it is meant to stay that way. Some truths are too vast to be captured by sensors or trapped within a laboratory slide. But as I watched the horizon fade into a deep indigo twilight, my respect for the oldest living culture was permanently cemented. I understood now that we are not just observers of this story. We are participants in a song that has been playing since the first sunrise. The dreaming is not the past. It is the present, and it